Welcome to the Parkland Report. My name is Seamus Reilly. Joining me for today's program, Dr. Tom Ramage, President of Parkland College. Welcome to the Parkland Report.
It's a pleasure to be here as usual, Seamus.
Well, we have another exciting semester underway and we have lots of students on campus, lots of things going on. Perhaps we might talk a little bit to start off with about a sort of a different orientation to campus than we've had. When you come in off of Bradley Way, things aren't quite what they used to be.
Well, they're a little bit dirtier these days, that's for sure. There's a hole that's, I used to say gigantic hole, but it's been filled in quite a bit now with a ton of concretes, literally. The foundation for our new Student Services Center is taking place, or taking shape. Some steel has been placed. You get a sense of the height of the building from the top end of one of those pieces of steel. But we're still about a year away, a little over a year away from having our new Student Services Center complete. But other parts of the campus have most definitely been completed, and, most notably the Applied Technology Center on the east side of campus. That is open and classes are going on right now. Mm-hmm. And by the way my calves feel, I can tell you that the fitness center is up and running just fine as well. Quite a load of students in there. Around noon yesterday, the lunch hour seems to be a popular time. So beautiful brand new fitness center and kinesiology lab for our kines and personal fitness trainer certificate program students. Great facilities.
So I know we'll be having a celebration in September to celebrate the dedication of the Donald Dodds Center addition, the Fitness Center, mm-hmm. and also the Applied Technology Center, as you mentioned.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about the Applied Technology Center. What programs are in there? Which group of our students is it serving?
Well, basically 4 programs, plus the department office, the Engineering Sciences and Technologies. Department office, the chair and support staff are actually in that building as well. But the main programs are the General Automotive Program, the Ford Asset Specific Program, which is sort of a subset of the general program, focusing on Ford brands in particular. Our welding program, which has grown substantially, is completely housed in that program. It's been a variety of places on campus and off, actually. It used to be out at the airport for a while. Mm-hmm. In the early days, but a brand new large facility for that program. The industrial maintenance program has moved 95% of their program to that facility. And finally, the automotive collision repair program is housed there from back on campus from an off-campus site. It's actually a program that has never been on campus before, so we're quite pleased to have it all contained in a nice new beautiful building.
The automotive program in particular is sort of a regional program. The space that it's occupying now is certainly a regional standard center in terms of the facility.
Absolutely. The dealers, which I think is a great barometer of how well you've built that space, all the dealers that have come in have sort of walked around with their jaw hanging open, looking at not only the layout but the sorts of equipment in there. An engine dynamometer is not a particularly popular piece of equipment in a regional perspective, let alone in a community the size of Champaign-Urbana. So from their reaction, I think the people who designed that space, meaning our faculty and staff and academic vice president, did a fine job.
One of the exciting things about designing a space, of course, mm-hmm. it's new and the technology is new and the equipment is new, which is always nice to see, but also some fantastic design in terms of classrooms. In other words, an automotive classroom that you can actually drive a car in.
Isn't that an interesting concept? Yeah, lots of overhead doors, both externally and internally to the building, to allow those cars to be able to be circulated. And nothing's better than being able to drive a car into the classroom, pop the hood, raise it up on a lift, right in the room where the lecture's happening, so it can all be done real time. I think that's fantastic.
Well, it's a really wonderful site and a beautiful building, and hopefully people get a chance to come and
We don't want anybody to use it. Those floors are a nice, pristine, beautiful white, and you know, as soon as you drive a car on there, you got a tread mark.
Yeah.
Can't do that.
No, it's kind of amazing how clean it looks, like inside of a hospital sometimes in there. The fitness center you alluded to already in terms of, talk a little bit about our fitness center here at Parkland College and in particular its connection to the kinesiology program.
Sure. Well, we've always had a fitness center. Not many people knew it because, well, for a couple of reasons. One, it was sort of hidden in the basement of the gymnasium, now the Donald Dodds Athletic Center, and it was tiny. Basically a hallway that had been walled off at either ends and some equipment put in there, mostly used by athletic teams. In recent years, we've developed a new kinesiology program as well as a certificate program, the personal fitness training certificate. Both of those programs have taken off in terms of student interest and enrollment. So it became very apparent very quickly that our current fitness center lab was woefully inadequate to support any sort of growth in that area. So actually, as part of the Student Services Center building discussion, we sectioned off that fitness center project and put it, attached it to, to the gymnasium, where we already have locker rooms and shower facilities and so forth. So it made sense to co-locate it with the near the P wing. So the fitness center as it stands today after completion is tens of thousands of square feet of space that functions like a traditional fitness center where you have a cardio area with the treadmills and stair steppers and climbers and all that. We have 8 Olympic stations, which was a new term for me. You know, I've seen the Nautilus equipment,
Sure.
you know, the bench press and all that stuff, but this is pneumatically controlled, very safety oriented, multi-use pieces of equipment. So it incorporates bench presses and lat pulls and dip stations and, you know, the whole range. And it's all pneumatic. There's certain exercises don't require weights. You push a button and add 10 pounds or the other way to subtract 10 pounds. Very, very cool. And this idea of telemetry, where you wear this band around your chest and it monitors at least heart rate. I'm not sure what else it does, but there's monitors across the fitness center that allow you to check your status and apparently show everybody else how low your heartbeat is after running 5 miles. Very cool.
Very good for our students. Very good for our students
Absolutely.
who are being trained in this growing field of personal fitness training, and excellent for our faculty and staff who are taking advantage of it.
You know, students vote with their feet. When that program started with just a few students and grew to what it is now, it's an indication of both interest and need. The number of personal fitness trainers that are being hired in not only our community but elsewhere is a positive sign for that program. To have a space that's appropriate or adequate to train those students and what they're going to be facing once they get a job out there in the real world is an important thing, just like all of our programs.
Sure. Just to finish on that, we started with the Student Services Center, which we can see as the front door to the campus. Just a reminder, that's going to house an incredible number of programs and also hopefully lead to a very efficient way for serving our incoming students.
Most definitely. It should be. 113,000 square feet should hold a lot of different services. And as you mentioned, primarily all the student-focused services, the things that students need to access on their very first steps on campus. How do I register? How do I apply for financial aid? Who helps me pick out the classes that I'm interested in? Who sets me on a direction toward a career when I'm completed my certificate or degree or transfer on? All those functions right now are scattered primarily through the A wing, but on several floors in a non-standard fashion, I suppose is a good way to put that. It's very difficult for students to navigate that process. I have to go up, then I have to go down, then I have to go down the hall this way and then back the other way. The goal with the new Student Services Center is to logically arrange all those services so a student makes one circle or oval or square, whatever it is, through those student services and gets done everything they need to have done.
And speaking of students, we continue to be a comprehensive community college serving lots of students in all of our areas. Our numbers are more or less about where they are in terms of enrollment in the last couple of years, which is probably good given the hopefully improving economic climate that we've got. Certain aspects of the college, though, have begun to grow, in particular your career and technical fields. We mentioned dual credit, our transfer program, of course. Some really interesting things happening in terms of the growth of our programs and the continued excellence in the programs we offer.
Exactly. Well, we've always been pretty much split fairly evenly down professional, technical, vocational interests and then transfer interests. those variations or differentiations are pretty standard. They fluctuate a bit, but for the most part, we get equal numbers. The career programs, although when you see a dip in the economic situation for the country, those tend to pick up more so because they are a shorter path to an employment, a viable career path, or retraining. So you see those tick up a little bit as the economic conditions in the community and I suppose the nation improve. It evens back out again. And you're right, our total enrollment, really when things started getting a little dicey economically back in 07 or 08, our numbers really increased. I think we saw about 22% increase in 5 years of our student population. It's starting to tick off a little bit, which is not unexpected at all. Matter of fact, if you look at a trend line of our history, our enrollment history over time, you can see every economic bump that we've ever had in this country reflected in our enrollment. So it's a good thing for the country, for our community, that economic conditions are increasing, but we're trailing off a little bit on the numbers, small numbers.
We continue to see students who are interested in coming to Parkland with the goal of transferring to four-year universities.
Absolutely,
particularly the University of Illinois. And it's interesting for me to note that students seem to be pretty sophisticated when they come here. Much higher reliance on laptops, looking at electronic sort of offerings of textbooks as opposed to your standard traditional textbooks. We've made some adjustments on campus to help with that a little bit too.
We have. Probably twice a semester in a formal way. I spend some time in the College Center soliciting the opinions of our students, what they like, what they don't like about what's going on at Parkland. And fairly consistently for the last few years I've been hearing stories about our Wi-Fi system, our wireless system, being slow or hard to get on that system. So we made a significant investment, around $350,000, in redoing the entire wireless system across campus. So today, the process for getting on the Wi-Fi system and the speed at which it operates has increased dramatically. I don't hear those complaints anymore, which is a good thing. I imagine it won't be too long before I start to hear them again as we use all the available bandwidth, but that's just part of the show.
Well, it's part of the changing environment we have here at Parkland with increased technology and more people with smartphones.
Absolutely.
And we have some other exciting things coming up, and we'll get to those right after we take this short break. We'll be right back.
Catch live, play-by-play coverage of Parkland sports. Live the action live. CobraSports.net.
Get the ball rolling to a new career with an Eastern Illinois University degree at Parkland College.
Parkland and Eastern really made it work for me.
Now I'm taking Eastern classes on Parkland's campus. I'm working on my bachelor's degree from Eastern without commuting.
Thanks to Parkland and Eastern, I'm reaching my goals.
For more on Eastern at Parkland, call 217-351-2543.
Welcome back. With me, Dr. Tom Ramage, President of Parkland College. Talk a little bit about the convocation that we had. This was a first-time event for Parkland College here.
It was a great idea that grew out of our first-year experience project. The whole notion being that the more engaged students are, the quicker they are, or the more quickly they are engaged as they start at Parkland College, very likely the more successful they'll be in terms of grades and persistence and so forth. So one of the ways, obviously, that the universities for a number of years have been welcoming students to campus is through this idea of a convocation, a gathering of some sort around a particular topic or set of topics. Community colleges typically have not engaged in that sort of activity, but this year was a little bit different. A group of our student services directors and staff organized, again, like you said, the first time ever event where we invited students into the athletic center, did a little minimum of talking, gave away an iPad, and followed it by inviting all of our student organizations, our clubs, the honors program, Phi Theta Kappa, 30, 40 different programs, to set up tables out in the center of the college area. And food is always required. So we had some 1,500 or 1,000 chicken wings of various flavors available. Great success. A number of students took advantage of that opportunity, heard a little bit about the college, a little bit about the expectations around being a college student, learned how they could engage in areas around their interest, and started off the year with certainly on a high note.
I know Becky Osborne, director at CAS, when she was speaking, I know part of the idea was, and we were dressed in ceremonial graduation robes and our doctor robes, but the idea to create for the students an idea of graduation as a goal.
Right.
So the notion that this was sort of like a mini graduation ceremony, a bit like what used to be, or is still in many colleges, a matrculation ceremony.
Absolutely.
Where you have to start off with the ceremony in order to get in. But
well, we wear those robes on a daily basis, so modeling reality, no doubt.
But it is important, I think, sometimes for our students who very often are unaware of who the administration is, or don't really conceive of themselves as being sort of on a track toward a graduation.
Exactly.
We don't refer to them as the class of 16 or
certainly,
14 or whatever.
Certainly.
Yeah.
That's, I've heard it from a couple other folks also, that this year is a little bit different in that I think that convocation sort of put a face with a name. I was having lunch in the College Center a little earlier today, and far more students this semester will stop and say, hey, how's it going, than in previous semesters. Some strange guy in a tie having lunch in the college, who's that? Well, now we know each other from that convocation experience, so a barrier has been potentially lowered, and conversations happen.
And I think it also sort of ties in with that increased student engagement part, where we're trying to sort of get students engaged earlier, get them connected to clubs and organizations.
Right.
We have many great clubs and organizations, Service Learning Fraternity, as well as the Phi Theta Kappa and the Honor Societies. Oftentimes students, when they come here, I think sometimes think, well, I go to Parkland, I take classes, I don't necessarily feel connected. This was a way for them to get connected in the first week.
Right. Well, the majority of our students walk or drive to campus, most drive. From a 3,000 square mile district in size. And the tendency is to finish your classes and move on. And the more opportunities we can create for productive time use in between classes, before classes or after, encourage use of the library, getting to know faculty members in the student's discipline of choice. All those things have to be positive. We know that they're positive. So the more we can encourage that, the better service we're providing for our students.
And certainly the service learning experiences, the experiential learning, the entrepreneurship pieces that we've been working with, and with smaller groups of students throughout the campus certainly has been an impact, I think, on their experience here at Parkland College.
I would agree.
Yeah. We're getting ready for what used to be a once-in-a-decade visit, which is a visit from the Higher Learning Commission for continuing accreditation. This is 10 years is up, where they're going to be coming here October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Talk a little bit about what the process of accreditation is and what it means.
Sure.
And what we'll be doing on those 3 days.
Accreditation is an extraordinarily important function for any college or university in the United States. We have regional accrediting bodies. Ours happens to be an organization called the Higher Learning Commission. They're based out of Chicago, and they have a good swath of the middle of the country in terms of telling the public that this college, this university, by virtue of our accreditation, is a good investment of your time and energy and your money. It also has to do with how the federal government distributes financial aid. If you are not regionally accredited by one of these bodies, you don't have the ability to offer financial aid to your students. Now, most community colleges have a good percentage of their students who use some form or fashion of financial aid, so it is extraordinarily important to our students. And you're right, in the past it's been an every 10-year process, provided you're doing things correctly. The commission will come in, ask for a very large self-study, basically a self-examination of how things are going at the college over the entire operation. It's a large document that takes a significant amount of time and energy from everybody in the college to put together. That report is delivered to the Higher Learning Commission. They assemble a team of 5 to 7 folks who spend about 3 days on campus going over the information that you talk about in your self-study and matching it to the reality on campus. If that goes well, you are offered reaccreditation on some period of time. Typically it's been 10 years. This go around it's going to be a little bit different because the Higher Learning Commission has changed their process. So we know before they even get here, before October 1st even arrives, that we won't get a 10-year accreditation because that process is going to a smaller and more often sort of endeavor than the once every 10-year approach, which is probably a good thing. You know, after an accreditation visit, things sort of settle down into a bit of a trough and don't kick back up until maybe 4 or 5 years away from the next accreditation visit, and then things start to roll again in preparation for the next visit. It seems like maybe a little bit less energy over a longer period of time might yield more productive results for colleges and universities. But we anticipate a fantastic visit this next go-around. We're well prepared.
Sure. And the self-study is both a reflection from the college's point of view of what we're doing and how we're doing it and what we think about things that we've noticed over the last 10 years. But it's also a transparent document because it's also something that we share with the public because it lives on a public website.
Right. We share it widely, actually. We're required to invite a group of folks in to provide testimony to the commission. The report itself is viewed by critiqued by another president of another institution in Illinois. We publish a notice in the newspaper pointing people at the web address where it lives, and any and everybody is encouraged to comment either on the document or their perceptions of the institution in general outside of the document.
And like you mentioned, the idea is that moving on from this, that we will sort of maybe look at some shorter term projects that the college will choose, things that they focus on. We're not usually sitting around trying to think of things to do here. It's a kind of an ongoing sort of exciting time here on campus.
Sure.
Usually some major national sort of issues that we're dealing with in terms of you know, what the completion agenda and what do we do in terms of workforce development. Those are things that we have sort of addressed head on here in the college in terms of looking at our own data and developing ideas for that.
Well, just as you said, there are no shortage of things to do. The trick will be finding the topic that has the attention of the majority of the institution, whether that be developmental education or the completion agenda, how we get students from 5 credit hours to 30 credit hours to 60 credit hours and transferred or employed. That discussion is a national one, as you mentioned, and how we measure that, how we encourage that, and what actually happens to our students if they transfer prior to earning a degree at Parkland College. That may not necessarily be a bad thing, but you know, a statistic may lead one to believe otherwise. So education around those topics is probably just as important, I would think.
And certainly our new faculty and staff here in the college are certainly interested in what happens to our students, and there seems to be a growth in sort of around sort of experiential learning and service learning and engagement with students and in connection with the world outside. Many of our students now are actively engaged in working in areas that they might want to go into already.
Absolutely. From across the street at the Garden Hills School to Costa Rica, the opportunities are very significant. which is a little bit unusual for the community college world. More prevalent at the universities, but we have so many opportunities for students to get engaged in local projects, whether it's the Smile Healthy group with our dental hygienists over at Francis Nelson, or that same group going to Haiti. Both bookends, or both ends of the spectrum, are available to our students, and that's a great thing as well.
And of course, tremendous engagement from our foundation and our partners
Right.
in the community, both in terms of the private enterprises as well as sort of our relationship with the school districts
Right.
in our district. So it's been a great and enjoyable work relationship.
Well, the entrepreneurship program is a fine example of that. A program that didn't exist, 3 years ago, and a group of community-minded folks who are interested in entrepreneurial things and sort of a broad definition of entrepreneurship came together and created a foundation account that is very healthy in just 3 years. Actually, it's probably the fastest growing endowed set of scholarships we've ever had in our history. So it speaks to the interest in the word entrepreneurship for all its varied meanings.
Well, it's an exciting time here at Parkland College. Lots going on. Thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon, and look forward to a great semester. Great, thank you. That's it for this edition of Parkland Report. We'll see you back here next time.